The shuttle shook as it passed through the energy shield. Una Park pressed her face against the small window and held her breath. She had seen pictures of Athram Prime before. Everyone on Earth had seen them. But pictures could not prepare her for this. The station was massive. It stretched across the darkness of space like a city made of light. Thousands of ships moved around it like tiny insects. Some were small. Some were bigger than mountains. Una counted at least 20 different designs. 20 different species. 20 different civilizations that had conquered the stars long before. Humans learned to make fire. And now she was going to live among them. The shuttle landed in a docking bay that could have held her entire hometown. Una grabbed her small bag and followed the other humans off the ship. There were only 15 of them. 15 humans in a station that held 2 million beings from across the galaxy. A tall creature with silver skin waited for them at the exit. He stood nearly 3 meters high. His eyes were large and purple. His fingers were long and thin like spider legs. He wore a uniform that glowed with soft blue light. "Welcome to the Galactic Coalition," he said. His voice was smooth but cold. "I am Chores. I will show you to your work areas. Follow me. Do not touch anything. Do not speak to anyone unless spoken to. Do not enter restricted areas. The rules are simple. Follow them and you will have no problems." Una looked at the other humans. Some of them were scientists. Some were diplomats. She was the only maintenance worker. Back on Earth, she had been one of the best engineers in her company. She had fixed machines that others had given up on. She had solved problems that experts said were impossible. Here, she was nobody. Just another primitive human who had barely learned to travel between stars. They walked through long corridors filled with strange beings. Una saw creatures with 4 arms. She saw beings made of what looked like living crystal. She saw things that floated in the air without legs or wings. Most of them did not even look at the humans. A few glanced at them with curiosity. Some looked at them with something that might have been pity. Corey stopped in front of a door. "This is the maintenance section. You will work here." He pointed at Una. "You are Park Una, correct? You will clean the secondary systems in Sector 7. Report to your supervisor in 1 hour." Una wanted to say something. She wanted to tell him that she was an engineer, not a cleaner. She wanted to show him her qualifications. But she saw the look in his purple eyes. He did not care. To him, she was just a human. What could a human possibly know about real technology? She nodded and said nothing. Her friend Tayo Kim found her in the small room they had given her as living quarters. He was a diplomat, one of Earth's representatives to the Coalition. He was older than her by 6 years and had been in space for 3 years already. "I heard about your assignment," he said. He sat down on the only chair in the room. "I tried to talk to the administration. I showed them your records. They were not interested." Una sat on her bed. "It does not matter. I knew this would happen. They think we are children, babies who just learned to walk." "Give it time," Tayo said. "We have only been part of the Coalition for 5 years. It took the Novans 300 years to earn respect. We have to be patient." The Novans. Una had read about them. They were the silver-skinned species like Corys. They were considered the most advanced civilization in the Coalition. Their technology was centuries ahead of everyone else. I heard they just invented something new. Some kind of engine. Tayo nodded. The pulse drive. It can fold space. Ships can travel across the galaxy in seconds. They are going to install it in every Coalition vessel. It will change everything. Have you seen it? From a distance. They do not let anyone except Novan engineers near it. He paused. "Why do you ask?" Una shrugged. "Just curious. I like engines. That night, Yuna could not sleep. She kept thinking about the pulse drive. She kept thinking about all the technology around her. Technology that humans could only dream of. Technology that could solve so many problems back on Earth, and she was going to clean it. The next day, she reported to her supervisor. He was a small creature with 6 legs and a face like a frog. He gave her a cleaning tool and pointed at a long corridor. "Clean everything," he said. "Touch nothing else." Yuna cleaned. She cleaned floors and walls and windows. She cleaned machines she did not understand. She cleaned pipes that carried energy instead of water. And she watched. She watched everything. On her 3rd day, her cleaning route took her past Sector 12. This was a restricted area. The door was usually locked. But today, it was open. Engineers were moving equipment inside. Yuna caught a glimpse of what was beyond. The pulse drive dot, it was beautiful. It was a sphere of light and metal, floating in the center of a massive room. Energy flowed through it like blood through a heart. Novan engineers surrounded it, running tests and taking measurements. Yuna stopped and stared. She knew she should keep walking. She knew she should not draw attention to herself. But she could not look away. Then she saw it. A tiny flicker in the energy flow. A small irregularity that lasted less than a second. The Novan engineers did not react. Their instruments did not beep. Nothing happened. But Yuna had spent her whole life looking for problems that others missed. And she knew, deep in her bones, that something was wrong. She kept walking. She kept cleaning. But her mind was racing. What had she just seen? For the next 2 weeks, Yuna found every excuse to clean near Sector 12. She changed her routes. She volunteered for extra work. She stayed late when others went home. And every time she passed the engine room, she watched. The flicker happened again. And again. And again. It was not random. There was a pattern. The flicker came every 47 minutes. Each time, it was a little bit stronger. Each time, it lasted a little bit longer. The Novan engineers never noticed. Their machines never recorded it. But Yuna saw it. She started taking notes. She borrowed a small data pad from the supply room and wrote down everything. The time of each flicker. The duration. The intensity. After 2 weeks, she had enough data to see the truth. The energy fluctuation was growing. It was building up inside the pulse drive, like pressure in a bottle. And if her calculations were correct, it would not stop building. It would keep growing until the drive could not contain it anymore. Then it would explode. Yuna did the math 5 times. She checked their numbers over and over. Every time, she got the same answer. The pulse drive would fail in approximately 28 days. And when it failed, the explosion would destroy half of Athram Prime. She could not believe it. The Novans were supposed to be the smartest beings in the galaxy. Their technology was supposed to be perfect. How could they miss something so obvious? But then she thought about it more carefully. The Novans had been building advanced machines for thousands of years. They trusted their instruments completely. They believed their systems could catch any problem. Why would they look for something their machines said did not exist? Yuna knew she had to tell someone. But who would listen to her? She was just a human cleaning worker. She had no authority. She had no reputation. She had nothing except a datapad full of numbers that everyone would laugh at. She decided to start small. She went to Corey's, the Novan junior engineer who had greeted them on their first day. She found him in a break room, eating something that looked like blue soup. "Excuse me," she said. "I need to talk to you about the pulse drive." Corey's looked at her with his purple eyes. "The pulse drive? What could you possibly know about the pulse drive?" Yuna showed him her datapad. "I have been observing it for 2 weeks. There is a fluctuation in the energy matrix. It happens every 47 minutes. It is getting stronger. If it continues, the drive will experience a cascade failure in less than 30 days. Corey stared at her for a moment. Then he laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just heard the funniest joke in the universe. "You," he said between laughs, "a human maintenance worker, think you found a flaw in Novan technology? Technology that has been developed and tested for over 50 years. Technology that the greatest minds in the coalition have approved?" "I know what I saw," Una said quietly. "You saw nothing." Chorus stopped laughing. His voice became cold. "Our diagnostic systems monitor every particle of energy in that drive. If there was a fluctuation, we would know. Go back to your cleaning, human. Leave the real work to those who understand it." Una left without another word. She felt her face burning with shame. But she also felt something else. A small fire of anger in her chest. She knew what she saw. She knew her math was correct. And she would not give up. That night, she went to Taiho. He listened carefully as she explained everything. He looked at her data. He asked questions. When she finished, he was silent for a long time. "I believe you," he said finally. "But this is dangerous, Una. If you push this and you are wrong, it could destroy everything we have worked for. Earth could lose its place in the coalition. We could be sent home in shame. And if I am right and I say nothing?" Taiho closed his eyes. "Then a lot of people will die. So what should I do?" "You need to go higher. Much higher. Corey's is nobody. His boss is nobody. The whole Novan engineering department will never admit they made a mistake. You need someone who has the power to force them to listen." "Who?" "Prime Counselor Ithara. She leads the Coalition Council. She is the only one with enough authority to order an investigation." Una felt her heart stop. "The Prime Counselor? How can I possibly talk to her? She's the most powerful being in the galaxy. I am nobody. You have the right to request an audience. Every Coalition citizen does. It is in the charter. They might refuse you. They probably will refuse you. But you have the right to ask." Una thought about it. She thought about Corey's laughing at her. She thought about all the beings on the station who looked at humans like they were insects. She thought about what would happen if she was wrong. Then she thought about what would happen if she was right. "I will do it," she said. "Tomorrow, I will request an audience with the Prime Counselor." Taiho nodded slowly. "You know what this means? If you do this, there is no going back. Every Novan in the Coalition will hate you. They will try to destroy your reputation. They will try to prove you are a fool." Una stood up. She looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home. A small blue world full of people who had no idea what was happening here. "Then I will just have to prove them wrong," she said. The next morning, she submitted her request. By afternoon, the news had spread across the entire station. A human maintenance worker had requested an audience with the Prime Counselor to discuss a flaw in Novan technology. The laughter could be heard from every corner of Atheron Prime, but Counselor Ithara did not laugh. 3 days later, Una received her answer. The audience was granted. The council chamber was the largest room Una had ever seen. It was shaped like a half circle, with rows of seats rising up toward the ceiling like a giant stadium. Thousands of beings sat in those seats, representatives from every species in the Coalition. They had all come to watch the human who dared to question Novan technology. Una stood alone in the center of the floor. Above her, on a raised platform, sat the council leaders. Prime Counselor Ithara was in the middle. She was an Eldari, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Her skin was pale gold. Her eyes were completely black. She was over 800 years old, and she had led the coalition for the past 2 centuries. To her left sat Commander Ron, the military leader of the Novan fleet. He was tall and proud, with silver skin that seemed to glow with anger. He had not stopped glaring at Una since she entered the room. To Ithra's right sat Chief Engineer Veller. He was the head of all Novan engineering. The pulse drive was his creation, his life's work. His face showed no emotion, but his purple eyes were cold as ice. "You may speak," Counselor Ithara said. Her voice was soft but filled the entire chamber. Una took a deep breath. She had practiced this moment 100 times. But now, with thousands of eyes watching her, her mind went blank. She felt small. She felt foolish. What was she doing here? Then she remembered the flicker. The pattern. The math that did not lie. "Honored Council," she began. "I am Parkia. I am a maintenance worker from Earth. I am here because I have found a serious problem with the pulse drive." The chamber erupted in whispers. Ron made a sound of disgust. Veller's eyes narrowed. Una continued. "For the past 3 weeks, I have observed an energy fluctuation in the drive's quantum stabilization matrix. This fluctuation occurs every 47 minutes and is increasing in intensity by 0.3% each cycle. At this rate, the drive will experience a cascade failure in approximately 25 days. She pressed a button on her datapad. A large holographic display appeared in the air, showing her charts and calculations. As you can see, the pattern is clear. The energy is building up with nowhere to go. When it reaches critical mass, the drive will not simply shut down. It will explode. The blast will be equivalent to a small star going supernova. Half of Atherum Prime will be destroyed. The death toll will be in the hundreds of thousands. Silence filled the chamber. Then Veller stood up. "This is absurd," he said. His voice was calm but sharp like a knife. "The pulse drive has been tested for 53 years. It has passed every safety check known to science. Our diagnostic systems monitor it every millisecond of every day. If there was a fluctuation, we would know." He turned to face the chamber. "What we are seeing here is a perfect example of why humans are not ready for the coalition. They do not understand our technology. They cannot read our instruments. This maintenance worker has confused normal energy cycles for a flaw. Her calculations are based on incomplete data and primitive understanding." Many in the chamber nodded. Some laughed quietly. "I am not confused," Una said. Her voice was steady. "Your diagnostic systems do not see the fluctuation because it falls between their measurement cycles. The pattern is invisible to your instruments, but it is not invisible to direct observation." Commander Ron stood up. "Are you saying our technology is inferior to your human eyes? Are you saying that a species that has been in space for less than a century knows more than the Novans?" "I am saying that sometimes fresh eyes see what others miss." The chamber exploded in noise. Beings shouted at each other. Some demanded that Una be removed. Others called for silence. It took several minutes for order to return. Counselor Ithara raised her hand. The noise stopped immediately. "I have heard both sides," she said. "The claims are serious, but so are the consequences of ignoring them. I order an independent review of the pulse drive by a neutral team." The review took 3 days. Una was not allowed to participate. She waited in her small room, unable to eat or sleep. Taiho visited her every day, but he had no news. Finally, the results came back. The review team found nothing. The Novan diagnostic system showed no fluctuation. The drive was declared safe. Una was called back to the council chamber. This time, she was not a curious newcomer. She was a troublemaker, a human who had wasted the council's time. "The review has found your claims to be without merit," Counselor Ithara said. Do you have anything else to say before we close this matter? Yuna looked around the chamber. She saw the smiles on Novan faces. She saw the disappointment in Taiho's eyes. She knew that everything she had feared was about to come true. Her reputation was destroyed. Earth's reputation was destroyed, but the math did not lie. The drive was going to explode, and no one would listen unless she made them listen. Yes, she said. I have one more thing to say. The chamber went quiet. I challenged Chief Engineer Veller to a demonstration. Power the pulse drive to 100% capacity. Run it at full strength. If I am wrong, nothing will happen. The drive will work perfectly, and I will accept any punishment you give me. She paused. But if I am right, the flaw will become visible before the drive reaches critical failure. We can shut it down safely and prevent the explosion. Veller laughed. You want me to risk the pulse drive based on your delusions? Are you afraid? Yuna asked quietly. The chamber went silent. Every eye turned to Veller. His silver face darkened with anger. I am afraid of nothing, he said. Especially not the fantasies of a human-cleaning woman. He turned to Counselor Ithara. I accept the challenge. Let us end this once and for all. The counselor nodded slowly. Very well. The demonstration will take place in 3 days. May the truth be revealed. Yuna walked out of the chamber. Her heart was pounding. She had just bet everything on her calculations. If she was wrong, her life was over. But deep inside, she knew she was not wrong. The countdown had begun. The testing facility sat on a small moon far from Athram Prime. It was built for exactly this purpose. If something went wrong, if something exploded, the damage would be contained. No one on the main station would be hurt. Yuna stood in the observation room with 50 other beings. Counselor Ithara was there. Commander Ron was there. Taiho was there, his face pale with worry. Thousands more watched through holographic feeds across the coalition. The pulse drive sat in the center of the testing chamber below them. It looked even more beautiful than Yuna remembered. A perfect sphere of light and metal, humming softly with power that could fold space itself. Chief Engineer Veller stood at the main control station. His silver hands moved across the panels with practiced ease. He looked up at the observation window and smiled at Yuna. It was not a kind smile. Beginning power sequence, he announced. Drive at 10% capacity. The sphere began to glow brighter. Energy flowed to its core like rivers of light. The instruments on every screen showed perfect readings. Everything was working exactly as designed. 20%. More light. More power. The hum grew louder. Still, everything was perfect. Yuna watched carefully. The fluctuation would not appear yet. It was too weak at low power. She had to wait. 40%. Commander Ron crossed his arms. Halfway there, he said. And still no magical flaw from our human friend. Perhaps she would like to admit her mistake now and save us all some time. Yuna said nothing. She kept her eyes on the drive. 60%. The pulse drive was now glowing like a small sun. The energy readings were off the charts. But everything was stable. Everything was controlled. Veller's smile grew wider. As I told you, Counselor, there is no flaw. The drive is performing exactly as designed. This has been a waste of everyone's time. Continue the test, Counselor Ithara said quietly. 80%. Yuna leaned forward. Any moment now. Any moment. 90%. Still nothing. The instruments showed no problems. The drive continued to run smoothly. Yuna felt doubt creeping into her mind. Had she been wrong? Had she made a mistake somewhere in her calculations? No, she knew what she saw. The math was correct. It had to be correct. 94%. And then she saw it, a tiny flicker on one of the screens. So small that no one else noticed. But Una saw it. The fluctuation. It was there. 96%. The flicker grew stronger. Other screens began to show it too. Una saw one of the Novan technicians frown at his display. 97%. Suddenly, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed across the control room. The technicians scrambled to their stations, shouting at each other in panic. "What is happening?" Commander Ron demanded. Veller's face had gone pale. His hands flew across the controls. "There is an energy buildup in the stabilization matrix. I do not understand. This should not be possible." 98%, the computer announced automatically. The pulse drive was shaking now. The beautiful sphere was flickering like a dying star. Energy was leaking out of it in wild bursts. The readings were going crazy. "Shut it down," Counselor Athara ordered. Veller pressed every button he could find. "The failsafes are not responding. The system does not recognize the failure type. It thinks everything is normal." 99%. The drive was going to explode. Everyone in the observation room knew it. Some beings started running for the exits. Others stood frozen in fear. Taiho grabbed Yuna's arm. "We need to go," he said, but Yuna did not move. She was staring at the control panels below, at the old dusty section in the corner that no one had used in decades. The manual controls, the physical overrides, the backup systems that the Novans considered too primitive to bother with. "I can stop it," she said. She ran out of the observation room before anyone could stop her. She sprinted down the corridor and through the security doors. She burst into the control room just as the computer announced 100%. The pulse drive was screaming now. The whole facility was shaking. Cracks were appearing in the walls. In seconds, it would tear itself apart. Una pushed past the panicking engineers. She reached the manual control station and ripped off the dust cover. The controls were simple. Old-fashioned switches and valves. Things she had worked with her whole life on Earth. She did not think. She did not hesitate. Her hands moved on instinct, doing what they had done 1,000 times before on broken machines back home. She opened the emergency vents. She redirected the energy overflow. She released the pressure valves one by one. Carefully balancing the power levels, the screaming stopped. The shaking stopped. The alarms went silent. The pulse drive floated in its chamber, dark and cold. Its power was gone, but it was intact. It had not exploded. Una stood at the manual controls, her hands still gripping the old switches. She was shaking. Sweat poured down her face. But she was alive. Everyone was alive. Slowly, she turned around. Every Novan in the room was staring at her. Commander Ron's mouth was hanging open. Chief Engineer Veller looked like he had seen a ghost dot in the observation window above. Counselor Athara stood perfectly still. Her ancient black eyes met Una's. And then, very slowly, the Prime Counselor began to clap. Others joined her. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. The sound of applause filled the facility. Beings who had laughed at Una days ago were now cheering for her. Vela walked toward her. His silver face was no longer proud or angry. He looked tired. He looked old. He looked like a man who had just watched his life's work almost destroy everything he cared about. He stopped in front of Una for a long moment. He said nothing. Then he bowed his head. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "You were right. I am sorry." Una did not know what to say, so she simply nodded. Behind her, Taiho was crying. The days after the demonstration changed everything. The pulse drive was taken apart piece by piece. Teams of engineers from 12 different species studied it. They found exactly what Una had described. a tiny flaw in the quantum stabilization matrix, a gap between measurement cycles where energy could build up without being detected. Such a simple mistake. Such a deadly one. They called it the Park instability. A name in every engineering textbook across the galaxy. Future generations would learn about the human who saw what others missed. But more importantly, they would learn why she saw it 1 week after the demonstration. Counselor Athara called a special session of the Coalition Council. Every seat was filled. Every holographic feed was active. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds watched as the ancient leader took her place at the center of the chamber. "We have gathered here to discuss something more important than the pulse drive," she began. "We are here to discuss what this incident has taught us about ourselves." The chamber was silent. Even Commander Ron, who usually had something to say about everything, kept quiet. For too long, we have judged species by how old they are, by how advanced their technology is, by how many centuries they have spent among the stars. We have looked at younger civilizations and seen only children. We have dismissed their ideas without consideration. We have laughed at their contributions. She paused and looked directly at the section where the human delegates sat. We were wrong. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some beings nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. The humans have been spacefaring for less than 100 years. Their technology is simple by our standards. Their history with us is short. And yet a single human maintenance worker saw a flaw that our greatest engineers missed. She spoke up when everyone told her to be quiet. She stood her ground when everyone told her she was wrong. And she saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Counselor Athara raised her golden hand toward the human section. "Stand up, Park Yuna." Yuna's heart stopped. She had not expected this. She looked at Taiho, who smiled and nodded encouragingly. Slowly, she rose to her feet. This young woman did not save us because she was smarter than the Novans. She saved us because she was different. Because she came from a world where survival is hard, where resources are limited, where nothing works perfectly and everything breaks eventually. She grew up learning to question, to doubt, to look for problems before they become disasters. She was trained by her world to ask one simple question that we had forgotten to ask ourselves. Counselor Athira's black eyes seemed to look into Yuna's soul. What if this breaks? The chamber erupted in discussion. Yuna sat back down, her face burning red. She had never wanted attention. She had never wanted fame. She just wanted to fix things. But the counselor was not finished. "I hereby propose 2 changes to coalition policy. First, the pulse drive program will be redesigned from the beginning, with input from engineers of all species, including humans. Chief Engineer Veller has agreed to lead this effort." Veller, sitting in the front row, nodded solemnly. The proud Novan, who had laughed at Yuna, was now her strongest supporter. He had spent the past week studying human engineering methods. He had been amazed by how much wisdom could be found in such simple approaches. Second, Counselor Athara continued, "I propose that Earth be upgraded from provisional membership to full membership in the Galactic Coalition, effective immediately." The chamber exploded. Cheers mixed with protests. Beings jumped to their feet. Some applauded wildly. Others shouted objections. But when the vote was called, the result was clear. Earth was now a full member of the coalition, with all the rights and privileges that came with it. Taiho grabbed Yuna's arm. His eyes were wet with tears. "Do you understand what just happened? Do you know what this means?" Yuna nodded slowly. She understood. Humanity had proven itself. Not through war, not through technology, not through wealth or power, but through the simple act of paying attention when others did not. After the session ended, Veller approached her. He moved differently now. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something that looked almost like humility. I would like to offer you a position, he said. Lead diagnostic engineer for the Coalition fleet. You would oversee the safety reviews of all new technology. You would have full authority to stop any project you believe is dangerous. Una blinked. Me? But I am just a maintenance worker. Veller smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had seen from him. You were a maintenance worker. Now, you are the being who saved Atherum Prime. I think you have earned a promotion. That night, Una stood on the observation deck of the station. Through the massive windows, she could see ships coming and going from every corner of the galaxy. Lights of 1,000 colors. Designs of 100 species. A universe of wonders that humanity was now truly part of. Taiho found her there, as he always did. Big day, he said, standing beside her. Big day, she agreed. You know they will expect miracles from us now. The humans who saved the Coalition. The fresh eyes who see what others miss. That is a lot to live up to. Una thought about it. She thought about Earth and all its problems. She thought about all the times humans had failed and fallen and gotten back up again. She thought about every broken machine she had ever fixed, every impossible problem she had ever solved. Then she smiled. Good thing humans are stubborn, she said. Taeho laughed. That we are. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, new challenges were waiting. New problems to solve. New flaws to find. But for now, in this moment, everything was peaceful. The cleaning woman had changed the galaxy. Not with weapons or wealth. Not with ancient wisdom or advanced technology. But with patience, observation, and the simple courage to speak up when something was wrong. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the universe took note. The youngest species in the Coalition had proven the oldest truth there. Was that never underestimate the ones who learn to survive by asking what if this breaks, because those are the ones who know how to make things work.